Hi, welcome to Question and Answer Tuesday. Well, what happened to Question and Answer Monday, Christina? It's on Tuesday now. If you are new here, I'm Christina, your friendly Canadian immigrant, talking to you about Canadian immigration and what it's like being a Canadian immigrant. This week's question came into us from Instagram, and it is all about the postgraduate work permit. And the postgraduate work permit is the work permit that you get post-graduation. Sorry, quite literally. The postgraduate work permit is the work permit that you would get after you would have come to school here for some X amount of time, right? So I'm going to get right into that person's questions and tell you all. Okay, so hi Christina. I have a few questions. I understand that you can apply for a postgraduate work permit post-graduation. But my first question is, are you allowed to apply for the work permit immediately after graduation? 2, while waiting on the work permit, what do I do in that time? Good question. 3, say I get the work permit, right? And it's only for 1 year. And I don't get a job offer. Do I go back home?
Dun dun dun.
That is a great question. And I promise you that I was plagued with that same thought when I was just finishing up school and wondering, oh my God, what am I going to do? What if I don't get a job? Do I have to go back home? So now, if you're new here, if you're new to Canadian immigration and what it's all about, and this is the first video you're watching, a postgraduate work permit is a work permit that you get after you come to Canada and studied at school for more than 8 months. Now, it gets very specific in terms of more than 8 months, but usually the time that you get on your work permit is the time that you went to school for, which is somewhat confusing because then what is a year and what is 8 months? In school jargon, 1 year is 8 months, which like for a lot of us who were at school at Humboldt, it was like, are we going to get a work permit for 8 months or 1 year? What is it? I'm so confused because we went to school for 8 months. But in school jargon, a year is 2 semesters and each semester is 4 months. And so a year is 8 months. And some people will have like a summer break in between. And some people will go 8 consecutive months. My schooling was 8 consecutive months from January to August. And it was considered 1 year. Now, I don't know if things have changed, right? Things may have changed slightly. I do see on the website where it says if you studied for 9 months, you're going to get a work permit that is 9 months long. But I don't know what course is 9 months. It's really 1 year. And a month, if you're counting per semester. So I went to school for 8 months. My study permit, the length of my study permit was from January to November. The length of my work permit was November to November, a year. But my schooling was January to August. Now, I don't say that to confuse you. I just say that to give you some hope that you will probably get a 1 year work permit if you went to school for 2 semesters. All right. So now the first question is, of course, are you allowed to apply for the work permits immediately after graduation? No, I guess the terminology postgraduate suggests graduation, but it actually has nothing to do with graduation, the actual graduation ceremony. It is more about the last day of school in terms of classes or in terms of the semester, right? So the qualification or the requirement to apply for a postgraduate work permit is that you would have finished school in its entirety and you would have gotten 2 things. 1, as a letter of completion from your school and your transcript. Not either or, but both. And this is something that I recall having to request from the International Student Department, saying that, okay, I'm finished now. Nice being here. Can I have my letter of completion, please? As well as my transcript. And I found that it probably came very quickly. Now, The processing times, depending on which school you go to, may vary. So that's definitely something that you want to check out depending on the school that you go to, right? You can go, there's probably an international student portal on their website that gives you some information on that. And if not, always feel free to email or call the school. Well, how long will it take for me to get my certificate of completion? But really and truly, your valid status in Canada is right up until your study permit expires, right? So as soon as you finish school, as soon as your last class, I remember my last class being in like August. And it was like an elective, which is like a saving grace, because in most courses or most classes were done in like July. And then I had one that went all the way up to the end of August. And the saving grace is that all of your things would have been marked already by the end of August. So you have this one thing that needs to be marked, grades uploaded, get your transcript, your school leaving letter, and apply for your postgraduate work permit. Now that you've applied for it, the processing time will vary. I recall in my day, it was about 30 days processing time. What do you do in that time? As per my reading, as per the CIC website, I am not an immigration consultant nor an immigration lawyer. Anything I say or do cannot be held against me. I am sharing my experience-based information. You can work until your work permit is processed, and you can work full-time. Not just the 20 hours that you are allowed to work when you're in school. You can work a full 40-hour week until you get your work permit, if school is completed and you've applied for your postgraduate work permit. That is what the new and updated information on the website as of this day in 2019 says. So that's pretty hopeful, right? And why? The thing is, you definitely want to start working as quickly as possible as you get out of school. So get out of school, apply for the thing, work. Or as soon as school is finishing up, get some interviews, find a job that is going to qualify you as a skilled person. I mean, you can work in retail, you can work at Tim Hortons, you can work at a coffee shop. Those will not qualify you for points under express entry. So you definitely want to do something that is going to be under an NOC, that NOC code that is either A, B, or 0 or O, whatever. So you definitely want to get something as quickly as possible to maximize the amount of time that you have working in Canada, because anything less than a year won't get you any points. So you want to get a 1-year mark, right? And some people go to school for 2 years. If you go to school for 2 years, you get a 3-year work permit, which is good. And I see a lot of people who will actually go to school again, or go to school for 2 postgraduate certificates or a 2-year program in order to get a longer work permit, because really and truly, the longer you have, the less on edge you have to be, and the more time you have to find a good job, right? But you can start your job search from your last month of school and try to see how quickly you can get your work permit application submitted and start working so that you can count the time. Okay, and the third question is, say I get a work permit that's for 1 year, right? What if I don't get a job? Do I have to go home? And this is a very good question. And it's going to depend on your situation, because what if you have enough points before you even get to the 1 year? What if you have enough points before you even apply for a work permit, right? So let us say that you're fresh out of school, you don't have enough points, and you need to work to get the points. You definitely have to work for at least a year in Canada to be hired under the Canadian experienced class. Now, if you don't get a job within that 1 year work permit, or to work the full year, probably consider a program outside of express entry. Consider the Atlantic Immigration Pilot Program or the Urban Rural Pilot Program. Or if there is an employer somewhere in Canada that is willing to do a labor market impact assessment to sponsor you to work for them on a closed work permit. And 3 is an option that I considered. I'm not telling you to do this. It's expensive. I didn't do it. It's something that I considered because as an option, just in case you run out of options, is to go back to school. If you go back to school, you'll get so you go to school for another year. You'll get another work permit that is a year long. But it's just that school is so expensive as an international student, right? So for real, like unless you're flossing, you got money, then by all means. But if you're a pauper, it's not necessarily the most feasible option for some people, right? So I want to say to you, don't even go down that road. Don't even think about what if you don't get a job. Get a job. And I know I say that, and it's, you know, it's of course easier said than done, and it is. But I say that to put pressure on yourself, to put yourself out there, submit resumes, go and meet with employers, go and have information interviews, contact people on LinkedIn, network, and get yourself into a job. Have a strategy before you get out of school. Start looking for jobs before you get out of school. And if you find that Toronto is not the place to be, then Toronto is not the place to be. Move. Go where you need to go to get the job. For me, I was willing to go to Alberta. I was willing to go to British Columbia, because if there were jobs there and there were no jobs here that were going to make me eligible for express entry, I was gonna go. I was gonna leave, right? Because you can only do so much, right? And getting into a job that does not qualify under the NOC skilled labor jobs won't get you anywhere, right? It will get you some money, but it won't get you points towards express entry, right? So if you don't get a job in time to make that 1 year up, or if you don't get a skilled job at all in that 1 year, which I find hard to fathom, it is possible that you have to go home. Now, going home when I was, of course, in the process seemed like, oh my God, it's the end of the world. But really and truly, if you do have to go home and then probably work in your country to get some work experience points, then you can probably submit your profile for express entry 1 year after. Like, for me, it felt like the end of the world if I had to go home. But looking back, it really wasn't the end of the world. It's not like, oh my God, if I have to go home, there's no chance of me ever coming back to Canada. No. And going home is probably going to be cheaper because you're not paying any rent. You're working, food cheaper, everything cheaper. You're probably living with your parents, and next year you'll go. And you get like a 1 year break from the cold and the snow. So to recap the questions, can you apply for a work permit immediately after graduation? You can apply for a work permit immediately after you finish school, after your last course ends, and you have gotten your letter of completion and your transcript. Question 2, what do I do while my application is being processed? You work. You work. And 3, say I don't get a job, do I have to go home? Maybe. But don't not get a job. And if you do have to go home, it's not the end of the world. I have never met somebody who has had to go home. Everybody who I know has found a job or has gone back to school and stayed here. So I hope that helps. I hope that answers your questions. I don't want you to worry. I don't want you to fret. Think abundance. Don't have a scarcity mindset. If Toronto is not working for you in terms of finding a job, move. Go to British Columbia, go to Alberta, pick up yourself, leave if you must. But don't go anywhere where you don't have any hope or great potential of getting a job, right? Apply for jobs, go where you need to go. It is short term to get what you need to get done in terms of permanent residency. And check out other programs that aren't even worried about points and working in Canada. And check out the next video where we're going to talk a lot about the postgraduate work permit application and the actual postgraduate work permits. I appreciate the time you are taking to watch this video. Please remember to subscribe and join our Canadian immigrant community. Thank you. Give it a thumbs up if you like this video. Remember to ask your questions in the comments section below for the next question and answer Tuesday. Look out for the answers to your questions. See you in the next video.